The idea that we are now a few days away from a new administration, which really, I think, set the stage for so many of the things that we are going to be dealing with over the coming years. Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. So I had the privilege of being on Air Force One, and the president called me up to his compartment and said, "Tony, what scares you most about potential microbial attacks?" And he was talking about a terrorist. And I told him, I said, "Mr. President, I worry more about the natural occurrence of an influenza pandemic and the ongoing plague of HIV than I do about a bioterror attack." All of a sudden, we had a pandemic influenza strategic plan. So it's all over the place. So what's the answer to that? What's the best way to address that? I think most of you know what I'm going to say in the next slide, is something that we really have to get successful, and that is the development of a universal influenza vaccine, namely a vaccine that is not only effective against seasonal flu changes, but also pandemic. About 6 or 7 years ago, when we were talking about the work that we started, and it's coming along pretty well. We don't have it yet. We're probably not going to have it for a few years, but we're getting closer and closer to a universal flu vaccine. We do need a public health emergency fund. It's tough to get it for the reasons that Ron mentioned, but we need it, because what we had to go through for Zika, I mean, it was very, very painful when the president asked for the $1.9 billion in February, and we didn't get it until September. What about influenza? Are we going to get a new pandemic? And the third bullet is probably the most important. What about things that we're not even thinking about? But what is for sure, that no matter what, history has told us definitively that it will happen, because infectious diseases, as I said 8 years ago in this article with David Morins and Greg Folkers, that it is a perpetual challenge. It is not going to go away. So the thing we're extraordinarily confident about is that we are going to see this in the next few years. Thank you. You know, to be honest with you, we're already doing a lot of it now, so it becomes very clear that we are very industry friendly when you talk about getting a pharmaceutical partner. We try to get it from the very beginning. We do something that I've referred to as de-risking, namely pharmaceutical companies that have a reluctance to jump right in the development because they're not sure whether this is going to be a economically viable product. They tend to hold back. But if you do the basic research, the early clinical studies, and bring up the process closer and closer to the end game, they are much more enthusiastic about coming in. And we do a lot of that. In